Good morning. Today is the fourth day of Cheshvan, the 19th of October. We're up to the fifth reading of Parashat Noach, the second parsha of the Torah. And this reading is the aftermath of the flood. And the aftermath was that God made a covenant. If we'll have time, we'll see that this is actually the second time he made a covenant with Noach. And the covenant this time is very interesting. Everybody knows that the sign of the covenant, every covenant between two parties has to have a sign. The sign in this covenant was obviously the rainbow. So that's very familiar, and a lot of people have already noted when talking about Noahide laws and the whole direction of those who are non-Jews, that they have a covenant with God and that this covenant was already made with Noah and it just needs to be continued. So a lot of people have noted that there's this concept in the Talmud called the 7 Noahide laws, even though it's a very vague concept because really it's more like a sign that they gave, that the Talmud gives. Really, if you go over all the commandments that are related to what are called these 7 Noahide laws, they're more like categories. So according to some accounts you come up with 78, according to other accounts you come up with 91. It's much, much wider than people think. It's not just the 7 categories of laws that are usually mentioned. But the number 7 sticks, and the reason that the 7 sticks, first of all, is because that's what the Talmud mentions in the beginning of its discussion. This is a long discussion in the Talmud and in the tractate of Sanhedrin. But there's another reason that the 7 stuck, and this reason came about later. And a lot of people connected it because they saw that there, in the spectrum, and maybe this is even the reason why Newton identified 7 colors in the spectrum of the rainbow. The rainbow is basically a spectrum of visible light. So it takes sunlight, and when it goes through water, it breaks up, and so because of this diffraction, you get a rainbow and you see all the colors of the visible spectrum. But the way that the eye sees it is it sort of divides into 7 areas, and those are known as the 7 colors of the rainbow. That's very interesting, but it's from the 16th century. What we want to look at today is a topic I don't get a lot of chances to cover, is the mathematics in the Torah. And the mathematics in the Torah it starts from very simple observations. So the observation that we want to start with is that the sages say that great is circumcision, the covenant that God made, the second covenant that God made with Abraham, which we'll begin to see next week and the week after. Great is circumcision because there were 13 covenants made over it. That's the language of the Mishnah in the tractate of Nedarim. What does the Mishnah mean? It means that if you take the paragraphs describing the covenant of circumcision that God made with Abraham, and you count the number of times that the word covenant appears, you'll see that it appears 13 times. Now, using that logic, if you go back to our reading today, which covers exactly the description of the covenant that God made with Noah, then you will find that the word covenant appears exactly 7 times. Where are we looking? We're in today's reading. We're starting from Genesis chapter 9, verse 8. And then you read, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 verses. And you'll find that in those 10 verses, the word covenant is mentioned 7 times. So this tells us that the covenant with Noah is related in its essence to the number 7. It's not just by any chance that the sages picked this number. I don't know of any earlier documentation that from our generation somebody went and actually counted the number. The person who counted this is, of course, Rav Ginsburg, because that's the way he thinks. If he sees that the Torah counted something regarding the covenant with Abraham, he goes and checks in other places and sees there. What we want to look at today is what happens when you look at the 4 major covenants that were made in the book of Genesis. Now, I mentioned in the beginning that there's actually a 5th one, and we'll get to it a little bit later if we have time. So the first covenant was the one with Noach. Then there are two covenants made with Abraham. One is over the land of Israel, and the other one, or land of Canaan as it was called then, and the other one is over circumcision. And then there's a fourth covenant, that was made with the Jewish people over the Torah. The Torah was given as a covenant. We've mentioned this word many, many times. I have to explain what this word covenant actually means. A covenant means an unbreakable bond. It means that no matter what happens, we are tied together in this bond that we've made between us. So the covenant can be between two people, as we'll see at the end of, for instance, Parshat Lech Lecha, that Abraham makes a covenant with Avimelech, the king of the Philistines at that time. Or the covenant, the ones that interest us, which are really unbreakable, are the ones between God and man. So we have these four covenants. Now, let's follow this idea of counting how many times the word covenant appears in each of these covenant enactions, these making the covenants. So, by the covenant that God made with Abraham, and the covenant over the land of Canaan, the land of Israel, the word covenant, brit, appears one time. The covenant over the Torah, the sages already tell us that it is 3 times. They're not all in the same place. They were made in 3 different locations, and 3 different times in the Pentateuch, God makes a covenant with the Jewish people over keeping the Torah. The third covenant we're looking at, we're ordering these in order in the number of covenants that appear, is the covenant with Noach that we just mentioned. It has 7 times the word covenant, and the covenant of circumcision made with Abraham has the word covenant 13 times. So we have these numbers 1, 3, 7, and 13. Now there is a method that was also developed by Newton called finite differences, and it was the original calculus of integers, of whole numbers. Obviously in the Torah there's no numbers that are not whole, because the Torah doesn't have any mention of a decimal point yet. That wasn't the level of mathematics at the time that the Torah was written, and the Torah will never mention something that was beyond the capacity of those that were being given the Torah to understand. So if we take these 4 numbers, 1, 3, 7, 13, we can make a series out of them. And you can use Newton's method of finite differences and understand that the way that this series develops is 1, 3, 7, 13. The next number will be 21, then 34, then 55, and it continues on and on. The function that generates the numbers is n squared plus n plus 1. Or as a polynomial, we would just say 1, 1, 1. That's how we say it in math. In any case, we have this basis now of a series called the covenant numbers. Now, why is this important? Because we only would need to take any consecutive 3 numbers in this series to recreate the entire series. We don't need 4. But the Torah mentions it 4 times. It's like strengthening the idea that covenants are related to this series, 1, 3, 7, 13, 21, and so on. Now, let's look at today's reading and ask, where do the words covenant appear? If we would count in the number of words, where do they appear in the paragraphs that we just described, the 10 verses that we just described? From the beginning, the covenants appear in the 13th, 38th, 57th, 77th, 91st, 114th, and 133rd words from the beginning. So the numbers again are 13, 38, 57, 77, 91, 114, 133. What's amazing about this is that every other number is itself a covenant number. It itself appears in the series. So 13, we already know, is a covenant number, and the 13th word is the word covenant. The 57th word is also the word covenant. Again, you have to see this in the Hebrew text, because obviously in the translation it could vary. But in the Hebrew text it's very exact, there's no changes. So the 57 is also a covenant number. The next one is, skipping one, is 91, which is also a covenant number. And the one after that is 133, which is also a covenant number. Now, how does it work? 13 is the covenant number of 3. That means that I would do 3 squared, that's 9, plus n plus 3, that's 12, plus 1, 13. 57 is the 7th covenant number. So I do 7 squared, 49, plus 7 is 56, plus 1 is 57. And 91 is the 9th covenant number. So we have 9 squared, 81, plus 9, that's 90, plus 1, 91. So these are all covenant numbers, obviously. But if you check them, you see that they're the 3rd, the 7th, the 9th, and the 11th. So if you have the 3rd, 7th, 9th, 11th, and you write these numbers down, you'll see that you're missing 2 odd numbers, 1 and 5. So they're all covenant numbers. They're all odd numbers, but we're missing 2, 1 and 5. What is the covenant number of 1? Well, the covenant number of 1 is 1 squared plus 1 plus 1. So that's 3. So the third word is not a covenant, but we need to look at it in a moment. What about 5? So we take 5 squared, 25, plus 5 is 30, plus 1 is 31. The 2 words that are in the 3rd and 31st location in our reading, in our paragraph, are El, 2, which means 2, Aleph Lamed, and the other one is Yotzei. The 31st word is Yotzei, those that came out of the ark. The amazing thing about these 2 numbers is that El equals 31, which is a covenant number, and Yotzei is equal to 111, which is also a covenant number. So what's happening here? That the covenants are every other odd number missing 2, 1 and 5. But when I look at the numbers in the 1st and 5th covenant number location, which is 3 and 31, the words in those locations equal, their value is a covenant number, even though they don't say the word covenant, but they're a covenant number. So this is an unbelievable finding. And there's a shape to these. I can't show you the shape. If you have wonders, you can look at it. The shape is basically of 2 triangles, one descending and one ascending, and then a point in the middle, which is called the point of the covenant, the sign of the covenant. All the covenant numbers look like these, meaning they all look like, I wish I could show it to you, but you can look it up in Wonders later. And this is a mathematical, it's not high mathematics. This is not like, it's not like, it's not like trigonometry, but when it comes to number theory, this is a beautiful finding. And so what we have here is this power of the covenant, the power of mathematics, which is uncovered in this generation, our generation, because our generation understands mathematics. We're intelligent enough to be moved, to gain insight from looking at the Torah from the mathematical perspective. So we have this beautiful figure of a descending triangle, an ascending triangle, and a connection in the middle. And here it's very clear that it's the covenant being struck between man and God. Now, we didn't have time to talk about the first covenant, maybe for a different opportunity. It's not in Wonders. There was no room to put it in there either. But before they went into the ark, God makes a covenant with Noach and his family about something also. We didn't have time to talk about this. I'll just say in short that the series of covenant numbers actually doesn't start 1, 3, 7, 13. It actually starts 1, 1, 3, 7, 13. The one before is, and again, I don't have time to explain this, is actually the covenant made with Abraham. The second one is the covenant made with Noach before the flood. The 3 is the covenant on the Torah. The 7 is the covenant with Noach after the flood. And the 13, the covenant of circumcision. Thank you very much for joining. A lot of math. I love math. I'm a little bit connected to math. Don't get a lot of opportunities to do this. I hope you can follow and look it up in Wonder so you can read it. And I think we even have an article on inner.org that discusses this, maybe even in more length that I wrote once. Thanks very much for joining. Bye-bye.